Okay, today we're going to be talking about the Pythagorean Theorem. So the Pythagorean Theorem, something you guys learned last year, just says if you take the three sides of a right triangle and combine them in a certain way, they're going to equal each other. So what it's saying is if you take the two smaller sides and square them, so a squared plus b squared, it's going to equal the longest side squared. So again, these are the legs, and this is the hypotenuse, or the longest side. Okay, so smaller sides, longest side. And we can use this to find missing sides of our right triangle. So for example, if we look at this triangle right here, first thing you're going to do with any Pythagorean theorem problem is you're going to look for the longest side, because that's the C, and that's the one that is all by itself on one side when you are setting this up. So to know the longest side, it's pretty easy. You just look at your right angle, and it's basically just pointing to the longest side. Draw a line from the corner of the right angle to the next line. It's going to touch with the longest side. It's always that side that is opposite that right angle there. Okay? You can think of that as like a little arrow there. It's just pointing to the longest side. Okay, so that means X is going to be the longest side. So to set this up in the Pythagorean theorem, I take the two smaller sides, square them, and add them together. So I'd have 5.6 squared plus 4.6 squared is going to equal the longest side squared, so x squared. Okay? So again, your calculator is going to do all this for you. So you just plug in 5.6 squared, which is 31.36, and then 4.6 squared is 21.16, and then add them together, gives you 52.52. That's equal to x squared. Now this is where a lot of students get this wrong, because they stop right there. Okay, but I'm not done. This is x squared. I want to find just x, so I have to undo all the squaring I just did. So to undo a square, you find the square root. So you have to square root both sides here. Square root of x squared is just x, and then the square root of 52.52. Again, to do the square root on my calculator, it's the second option, and then you push the squared button. And you just type in 52.52. And 7.247. You guys should round it to the nearest hundredth, so it's going to be 7.25. So 7.25, and that's inches. Okay? That would be the measurement of x there. Okay? So just using the Pythagorean theorem, you square the two sides you know. If they're the two legs, you would add them together. The last thing you're going to do always is square root. It's always the last thing you do on Pythagorean theorem. Okay, let's look at this one. So this one, again, first thing we're going to do is identify the longest side. Longest side is actually going to be this number right here. So this is my C in the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, that means x is actually going to be one of the legs. So when I set it up, it would be 9.5 squared plus x squared is equal to 15.7 squared. This is also the other common mistake that I see all the time. Students always want to put that x on the other side. It's not always the case. If it's one of the legs, it's going to be on this side with the other leg. Okay? Which means you're going to have to do some subtracting before you square root. So again, first thing you do, after you've set it up, the first thing you're going to do is square the numbers you know. So 9.5 squared is 90.25. And then that's plus x squared. And then 15.7 squared, 246.49. Okay? Now, before I can square root or anything like that, I have to combine all the numbers I know. So I have to get this x by itself. So to get the x by itself, it's like a one-step equation. I got to move the 90.25 out of the other side, which means I need to subtract it to move it to the other side. So 246.49 minus 90.25 is going to be 156.24. Now, again, last thing you always do is you're going to square root to undo all the squaring you just did. So you find the square root of 156.24, and you get 12.4999, which would round up to just 12.5. Okay, and that is meters, and that is your final answer right there. Okay, and that is the Pythagorean theorem.